Shocking moment, little girl's amazing plea for help from a surprising millionaire revealed. Lily Thompson stood at the edge of Maple Park, the rustle of leaves whispering a bittersweet melody in her ears. The sun dipped low, casting a golden hue over the playground where she had shared countless laughs with friends. But today, the light felt dimmed, overshadowed by the looming reality of eviction, a word that echoed through her family's rundown home. With each bill that piled high, her heart sank deeper. Her father, once a sturdy figure with calloused hands from years of labor, now scoured jobs that never came, while her mother worked endless days at the diner, barely bringing enough to keep the electricity on. What is a home without hope, she often wondered, her spirit wilting in despair. The thought consumed her, as unyielding as the creeping vines that strangled her favorite tree in the yard. What if they lost everything? What even was everything? Memories? Or just walls and a roof? With an anxious sigh, she slumped down onto the swing, the chains creaking beneath her weight. The park was supposed to be her sanctuary, yet even here, shadows of fear loomed heavy. If I could just talk to someone, she thought, a flicker of determination sparking within her. Someone who could help. But who? Mr. Jack Sanders, the reclusive millionaire, came to mind. The once beloved high school teacher turned tech mogul had drifted into a shell of a man, silenced by the very wealth that surrounded him. The idea both intrigued and terrified her. What if he didn't care? What if he turned her away, laughing at a little girl's foolish ambition? But what if? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With resolve hardening in her chest, Lily swung higher and higher, the swirling thoughts dissipating as she owned the emotion building inside her. She needed to approach Mr. Sanders. As she dismounted from the swing, her heart thudded loudly in her ears. Terrifying as it was, this was a leap she had to take. She was losing not just her home but everything that made her feel anchored, safe. Each step towards the grand house sent tremors of doubt through her. What would she say? Would he listen? The imposing structure loomed ahead, a stark reminder of the gulf between their lives. She hesitated on the doorstep, uncertainty gnawing at her. A deep breath filled her lungs, then she knocked on the door, her tiny hand trembling with the weight of her desperate plea. A moment of silence followed, thick and suffocating. What awaited on the other side? This was but the beginning of a surprising journey both for Lily and the lonely millionaire. Would the courage of a 10-year-old girl be enough to bridge the chasm between them and ignite a spark of purpose in his withered soul? The door creaked open, revealing a tall figure framed by the shadow of the foyer. Mr. Sanders, with his disheveled hair and weary eyes, observed her as if she were a fleeting apparition, a whisper of nostalgia stirring in his mind. Lily's heart raced, uncertainty mingling with desperation, her voice caught in her throat. "Hello," he said, his voice deep yet faint, as though he hadn't used it much lately. His brow furrowed in curiosity, yet a wall of indifference seemed to harbor a chill about him. "Mr. Sanders," she stammered, the words fighting for a way out. Her usual brightness dulled by the enormity of the moment. He looked at her, waiting, but not impatiently. The silence grew heavy between them, an unwelcome guest that threatened to stifle her purpose. "I need your help," she finally blurted, and she was surprised by the piercing clarity in her own voice. Each syllable felt like stepping closer to an abyss, yet an urgency propelled her. "My family, we might lose our home. My dad lost his job, and my mom works so hard but it's not enough." "I thought maybe you." His expression shifted. A flicker of something, was it empathy? Crossed his face before he masked it behind the walls he built. "I'm sorry to hear that," he replied, almost automatically. "But you must understand I'm not in a position to know." She interjected, emboldened by a surge of frustration that mingled with her fear. "You're not just a millionaire. You're Mr. Sanders. You used to teach us. You cared. Maybe you still can. When she said this, his hardened demeanor cracked slightly. The long-forgotten memories of an engaging classroom, the laughter, the excitement as minds opened briefly rekindled a ghost of warmth within him. But it was fleeting. He was chained to his wealth, burdened by an emotional desert that had consumed the vibrant teacher. I'm sorry, Lily, he murmured, his voice growing softer, yet it was laced with finality. I've tried reaching out in the past. People like me can't change the struggles that others endure. It's complicated. Is it? She challenged, blinking back tears that threatened to spill over. Is it really? Or have you just given up? The honesty in her words hung thick in the air, and her courage astonished even herself. For a moment, she detected a flicker of conflict in his eyes, like thunder rumbling in the distance, the storms of his past and the struggles he had chosen to avoid. Look, he finally said, folding his arms tightly as if to shield himself from her intensity, the world doesn't work that way. For you, maybe, Lily snapped, surprising herself again. But what if you could do something? What if you could actually matter to someone else's life? Mr. Sanders turned away, his back to her, pulling the door slightly ajar as if to signal the end of their encounter. But Lily wasn't finished. I don't want a handout. I want a chance. My family deserves a fighting chance. The words came pouring out of her like a floodgate breaking open. She could feel the truth of her own tenacity, igniting a fire she thought had been doused under the weight of her worries. Mr. Sanders paused, his fingers almost brushing the doorframe, caught between action and inertia. The challenge she posed pierced through the layers of his retreat. Maybe the world could work differently. I'll consider it, he finally muttered, still facing away, the concession thick with hesitation. Lily's heart soared, but doubt quickly joined the flutter of hope. What could consideration mean? Would he really act, or was this just a way to placate a young girl's plea? As Mr. Sanders closed the door a moment later, she turned away, contemplating her next move. The enormity of this interaction pulsed through her veins. She had ventured into the unknown, confronted a man haunted by solitude and regret. Now, she needed a plan to ensure her voice didn't vanish into the void. What would she do if the millionaire chose to ignore her plea? What if her family's fate hung precariously on a thread of consideration? The stakes had shifted, but so had her resolve to fight. In that moment, a newfound purpose crystallized. She could rally, strategize, and embrace whatever hurdles lay ahead. The challenges of the coming days loomed larger than before, and a sudden sense of ownership flooded her. With every step away from that house, she felt the weight of uncertainty morph into a determination she couldn't ignore. The stakes had been raised, but so had her resolve. The next day would be pivotal both for her and for Mr. Sanders. The time had come to face his demons and her own. Would he take the leap alongside her? The next morning dawned clear but heavy for Lily. She sat at the kitchen table, the day's decisions pressing on her chest like a weight. Her dad's job search left him increasingly despondent, a fact Lily tried to mask with bravado. Her mother, still asleep, deserved to wake up to hope instead of a family fraying at the seams. Each tick of the clock echoed her anxious thoughts. Mr. Sanders had merely considered her plea an easy way out, really. What did that mean for her? She was quickening her resolve. Waiting for him to act could be a fatal error for her family. It was time to turn her consideration into action. She felt a sudden surge of determination as she scribbled down a list of strategies. Contacting Mr. Sanders again was essential, but she needed to refine her approach. Perhaps a written proposal would resonate better. Many people preferred a clear presentation of ideas rather than impassioned pleas. Feeling the coldness of the table beneath her palms, she set to work. She structured her proposal, details about her family's situation, statistics about the housing crisis in their area, and compelling arguments for why Mr. Sanders' involvement could affect real, tangible change. The act of writing brought her a sense of control amidst chaos, a rarity in her current life. Yet, the fears of inadequacy flitted through her mind like shadows. Could she really capture the complexities of their struggle on paper? Would her simple words make any impact on someone of his stature? It wasn't just about money. She wanted Mr. Sanders to feel the weight of responsibility that often came hand in hand with wealth. She needed him to see his part in a community that thrived not only on success but on compassion. As she folded the pages neatly, an idea struck her. She'd deliver it personally. Face-to-face encounters had a way of cutting through the noise of indifference. She would go back to his house, rehearse her lines, and present herself more resolutely than before. After breakfast, Lily shared her plan with her dad. He looked at her with gratitude, but worry lingered in his eyes. "Honey, just be careful," he said, placing a comforting hand over hers. "I don't want you to get hurt, emotionally or otherwise. People like Mr. Sanders can be unpredictable." His concern drove home the reality of her decision. It was a risk, but risks often bore the seeds of growth. There was no growth without discomfort, her mother would always remind her. The thought kindled a fire within that pushed away doubt like light dispelling shadows. This wasn't just about her family, it was a chance to remind Mr. Sanders of the power he could wield, that he could still inspire and help others. She left the house, clutching the proposal like a lifeline, thoughts swirling about what would unfold. The streets were calmer than her racing heart. By the time she reached Mr. Sanders' home, clouds gathered overhead, reflecting her sense of urgency and dread. As she knocked on the door, anticipation battled anxiety in her stomach. Would he even open it again? But in her gut, she felt the echoes of her own conviction whispering that every effort mattered. Minutes passed before she heard the familiar creak. Mr. Sanders appeared in the doorway, wearing an expression that revealed nothing but profound intensity. She could see he had spent sleepless nights wrestling with his thoughts. Her heart leaped. "Lily," he greeted, neutrality in his tone. This was not the time for hesitation. "I'm back," she said firmly, presenting her neatly folded proposal. "And I believe this will matter." The air thickened between them, filled with unspoken tension. Lily saw the flicker of curiosity ignite in his eyes, mingled with an underlying reluctance. "This is just a piece of paper," he began, but she interjected, hungry for connection. "No. It's a chance," she insisted, her voice steady. The moment hung like a pendulum swinging between their uncharted futures. Would he take the leap with her, or would he recoil into his silence once again? His contemplation lingered, the crux of a decision teetering in the air surrounding them. The door hung slightly ajar, tension spiraling in the space between them. Lily could sense the weight of Mr. Sanders' gaze, the sharp scrutiny cutting through her resolve. She had stepped over the threshold of her own fear, but would he dare join her? "Why do you think I should help?" he challenged, his tone steady yet laced with an edge she hadn't anticipated. Her breath hitched, yet in the swirl of doubt emerged clarity. This was her moment. "Because it's about more than just my family. It's about everyone affected by the crisis, people who feel invisible or voiceless. I want you to see the human side of those statistics," she articulated, her voice gaining a resonance she hadn't intended. The words fell from her lips with an intensity she hoped could pierce his guarded exterior. Mr. Sanders raised an eyebrow, skeptical yet intrigued. "You think that a simple proposal can change anything? Why should I care?" This time, hesitation was not an option. She felt the throbbing pulse of urgency within her, urging her to lay bare the truth. "Because you have the power to make a difference. Your actions can set off a chain reaction. I believe you have the capacity for compassion, that you can choose to use your resources for something bigger." The words flowed, her conviction manifesting with each syllable. For the first time, she noticed a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, a crack in the armor he had constructed around himself. Perhaps she had struck a chord. Mr. Sanders shifted, visibly wrestling with his thoughts. "And what if I don't? What if I choose to ignore this plea?" The challenge lay bare, an invitation for her to reveal the heart of her family's struggle. Lily squared her shoulders, desperate to channel her fear into confidence. "Then it means turning a blind eye to the pain around you. I want you to imagine what life would look like for families like mine fired after years of service, scrambling to keep roofs over heads, food on tables. I know you see the statistics, but have you ever met the people behind those numbers? Silence enveloped them, the air thick with the weight of her words. She sensed the internal struggle shimmering behind his facade, the tug-of-war between apathy and accountability. If I did help, he finally mused, almost to himself, what would that entail? What do you really want from me? Lily took a deep breath, realizing the opportunity was slipping through her fingers if she hesitated. I want you to be willing to listen to me, to others like my dad. Maybe invest in initiatives that actually empower people rather than just treat symptoms. Have you ever thought about mentorship or community programs? His brow furrowed, skepticism still present, but now mixed with curiosity. What do you expect in return? Nothing. Just your engagement, she replied, the boldness in her words taking root. Think about the legacy you want to leave behind. It's not just about money. It's about impact. As his expression shifted subtly, a mix of contemplation and defensiveness, she realized she had pierced through more than just his skepticism. She felt herself shift too, growing beyond the girl who arrived at his doorstep. She was outgrowing fear. I'll consider it, he finally murmured, though the commitment felt fragile, like a thin layer of ice. But for Lily, it was enough for now. The battle had shifted, and a seed of possibility was planted, but she also understood that this fight was far from over. Thank you, she breathed, an unfamiliar sense of empowerment lighting her chest. Each pulse of her heart echoed what she had set in motion, a chance, however tenuous. Lily turned to leave, feeling light but also the grasp of something deeper. It was just the beginning, but Mr. Sanders had stepped slightly closer to the precipice of change. As she walked away, the clouds above thickened. She felt the need to reflect. Had she truly made an impact, or was this merely a fleeting moment of clarity amid a sea of uncertainty? This was no longer just a mission to save her family, it had now become a determination to weave together her own narrative of power and influence. But the real question loomed ahead: would she be able to keep the momentum alive, or would the world drown her resolve once more? As she navigated her path, the thought of what lay ahead haunted her, more challenging than she had ever imagined. Lily stepped out into the gray afternoon, a mix of exhilaration and anxiety crashing within her chest. The conversation with Mr. Sanders had felt pivotal, yet, she was acutely aware that the path she chose now was fraught with uncertainty. As she navigated the cluttered streets, the cacophony of city life felt muffled, as if the world around her had fallen into a distant murmur. In her mind, only one thought echoed: what's next? A gust of wind whipped her hair around her face. She brushed it away, inhaling deeply. The air was heavy with hints of rain, mirroring the tension bubbling beneath her calm exterior. Lily needed to gather herself, align her thoughts with her intentions. She pulled out her phone and stared at the screen, the stark statistics from her research shimmering back at her. Every number represented a life, a story she hoped to shift. The initial encounter with Mr. Sanders had felt like the first step on a tightrope. She had ventured onto uncertain ground between fear and hope. But now, that balance was precarious. What if he didn't follow through? The specter of disappointment loomed large, casting shadows over her growing determination. With a shaky hand, she shot off an email to Mr. Sanders, outlining her ideas in detail. As she typed, her confidence surged. She illustrated how his involvement could pave the way for meaningful change not just for her family but for countless others who felt trapped in despair. Each word was a reflection of her own burgeoning voice, each idea a brushstroke on the canvas of her vision. Sending the email felt liberating, but would it carry weight? Would it shift something in him? She chewed her lip, grappling with doubt. This was stepping into uncharted territory, where the risk of failure gnawed at her resolve. Days passed slowly, the world marching on while she awaited a reply. The silence was deafening, filled with the nagging voices of her insecurities. Were her efforts on behalf of so many futile? Concern crept in, uninvited but familiar. She scolded herself for spiraling into pessimism, but it was hard to shake the shadows that danced on the edges of her mind. Finally, she received a response. Heart racing, she opened the email, hoping for encouragement. Mr. Sanders expressed understanding, a tentative willingness to meet again, but it sounded as if he was still on the fence hedging his bets. His request for more information sent a ripple of anxiety through her. It felt like a gesture of interest, yet held the weight of 1,000 questions. She needed to nail this next interaction. She could not afford to waver now. Lily dove into preparations, researching mentoring programs and community initiatives in earnest. As she began to outline her thoughts, she felt a spark of empowerment course through her. It was in the act of preparation that her fears transformed into strategies. She was no longer a passive participant in this narrative, she was the architect of her destiny. Evenings became engulfed in a haze of brainstorming sessions and late-night coffee, her passion igniting ideas into actionable plans. With each passing day, she was transforming both in thought and in spirit. Yet lingering doubt whispered that perhaps she was naive to believe that one person could spark a movement. The day of their meeting approached. She adjusted her attire, wanting to project both confidence and sincerity. Smoothing down her blouse, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Who was this confident young woman staring back at her? She realized that every moment, every hurdle had reshaped her resolve. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in the room, she recalled Mr. Sanders' hesitant expressions and contemplative frown. Determined to reinvigorate the flicker of hope she had planted, she whispered affirmatively to herself, "This is it. My moment." As she set off to meet him again, a question lurked within. Would her passion translate into action, or was she about to face another round of skepticism that could potentially crush her newfound determination? The weight of uncertainty pressed down like a storm cloud, and as she walked into the unfamiliar building for their meeting, the stakes felt higher than ever. Lily pushed through the glass doors of the building, her heart hammering against her ribcage. She clutched her notes tightly, channeling all her energy into focusing on the task at hand. This was not simply about convincing Mr. Sanders, it was about unearthing the possibilities of change for people who felt powerless, for whom she had rehashed each statistic time and again. As she approached the meeting room, an anxious knot constricted her stomach. Doubts crept in, maybe she was unprepared to navigate such a pivotal conversation. What if he found her ideas lacking? What if he saw past the surface enthusiasm and uncovered the underlying fears? With every stimulating idea she jotted down, a counterpoint chipped away at her confidence. She had to confront this voice, she had to own the space. The room was bright and sterile, causing her to feel almost exposed. Mr. Sanders sat at the far end, peering over his glasses, a steely expression on his face. As she entered, he looked up, his expression unreadable. She offered a tentative smile, hoping to bridge the distance between them. "Lily," he greeted, gesturing for her to take a seat. "Thanks for coming back. Let us discuss your ideas. Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Sanders. I really appreciate your time." Lily caught herself fidgeting with her pen, an impulsive gesture signaling her internal turmoil. She took a deep breath, centering herself. "I've outlined a few key points I think could ignite our initiative," she said, leaning forward. In that moment, a spark of clarity lit within her. She was here for a purpose: to advocate, to present, to persuade. As she began her presentation, the words flowed more freely than ever before. She spoke passionately about the statistics she'd collected, connecting each one to real-life implications. She illustrated potential pathways, using vivid narratives to explain how these ideas could manifest into tangible outcomes. With each point, she saw Mr. Sanders shifting in his seat, his brows furrowing but not with disapproval. A glimmer of intrigue seemed to spark in his eyes. But as she ventured deeper into her pitch, a familiar voice of doubt slinked back into her thoughts. What if he asked a question she couldn't answer? What if one misstep sent him spiraling away from her vision? The fear hovered like a shadow, but she pushed it aside, forcing her focus back to the task at hand. "Your statistics are compelling, Lily," Mr. Sanders interjected, breaking her thought loop. "But have you thought about the financial feasibility of these programs? Many investors would want hard evidence before putting money behind any initiative." The question wasn't unexpected, she had prepared for it. Yet, it still hit a nerve. She swiftly regained her composure, ready to counter. Absolutely, I've conducted a preliminary analysis on potential funding sources and cost-effectiveness. This entire proposal hinges on aligning with existing revenue streams within the community, ensuring sustainability. She laid out her research on her tablet, her confidence reinstated as she dissected the financials. Each number was more than a statistic, it was a lifeline. Yet, she read Mr. Sanders' expression carefully. He was engaged now but still wary. Impressive, he acknowledged, leaning back, now considering rather than judging. She kept the momentum going, presenting a stronger vision, interlaced with raw emotion, drawing from her personal experience. She opened up about her family's situation, exposing vulnerabilities that were usually guarded. This isn't just numbers to me. This is about creating a foundation for real change, a legacy that elevates those who have been overlooked. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. The weight of her vulnerability hung in the air like a heavy fog. She watched as Mr. Sanders shifted in his chair. The walls surrounding his guarded demeanor appeared to be weakening. That's a noble sentiment, Lily, and I commend your courage, he said at last, his voice softer. But I need to know, what will you do if these plans face resistance? What happens when it gets difficult? Her breath caught. Why did he seem to be directly confronting her capacity for failure? It was disarming, and yet it struck a chord. I'll reassess and adapt, she replied, her voice unwavering. Nobody ever told me change was easy, but it's necessary. I've seen firsthand the impact of despair. I won T back down. As she sat there, doubts faded into the background, replaced by a growing sense of conviction. Every decision she had made led her here, and the subtle shift in Mr. Sanders' expression hinted at an awakening. The meeting was far from over, but as she watched him consider her words, Lily couldn't help but wonder, was the moment of truth inching closer, or would she discover that vulnerability came at a cost? The tension simmered in the air, and she braced for whatever Mr. Sanders would say next. Mr. Sanders leaned forward, folding his hands together in thought. The silence became palpable, stretching out like the hours on a long road trip. Just as uncertainty edged back into Lily's mind, he broke that stillness. Your resilience is commendable, but resilience is often tested. Let us talk about your contingency plan. Say your projections fall short, or the funding dries up. What's your backup? Lily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his scrutiny. Mr. Sanders, I believe that an organization grounded in empathy can reforge connections. My plans are not just about money, they're about changing mindsets. If I encounter resistance, I'll consult with stakeholders more frequently, gather their insights, and pivot accordingly. Consultation is all well and good, he remarked, his voice even, but what if those stakeholders lose faith? Many have come and gone, leaving broken promises. You need to be prepared for the worst. That sentiment twisted in her gut like a barbed wire. But she saw this as an opportunity to dive deeper. I understand that, but I also believe it's crucial to learn from our failures. If there's one thing I've realized, it's that every setback can inform future strategies. I won't let a single obstacle dictate the trajectory of my mission. His brow furrowed as he considered her words. It was less about challenging her now and more about testing her resolve. All right, let's shift gears, he said, his tone suggesting an element of playfulness she hadn't expected. Personal finance. Suppose you are in the fold of these promises and they begin to unravel. What would be your approach to keep your mortgage paid? Lily's mind raced momentarily, but she couldn't afford to falter now. That's a good question. My first approach would be budgeting tighter and seeking additional income sources. But if we're talking about my passion project, I deprioritize that, she stated firmly. I believe in sacrificing short-term comforts for long-term viability. Thus, I'd also focus on building a safety net for emergencies. I like that answer, he replied, his tone growing more approving. Every question he put forth solidified her conviction, forcing her to lay bare her values in the process. The once sterile environment seemed to hum with unspoken potential. She was surprised at how invigorated she felt, unlocking aspects of her character she didn't know existed. But then, As if he sensed her increasing confidence, he pressed further. Great passion and strategy, but that's just one side of the coin. How will you handle the emotional toll? The weight of watching those you want to help struggle? The stress of carrying their hopes as well as your own? Lily paused, recalling sleepless nights spent worrying about her family. The kind of despair that echoed in the silence of her childhood home. I know the burden is heavy, but it's a weight I am willing to shoulder, she said, her voice quieter now, yet no less steadfast. I refuse to buckle. Instead, I choose to channel that weight into resolve. Mr. Sanders leaned back, his expression softened for the first time during their conversation. You're showing depth in your commitment, and that speaks volumes, he said. But the reality is, the road to success is often stained with sacrifices. Once you step into this role, you can't unsee the struggle. Then I'll embrace it, she replied, feeling a refreshing surge of empowerment. It's my duty to ensure those struggles lead to growth, not defeat. He nodded slowly, his approval simmering into something almost tangible. The conversation has become productive. Perhaps this could lead somewhere. Just as hope took root within her, his next inquiry abruptly anchored her thoughts again. Now tell me, what are you genuinely willing to sacrifice to make this happen? Her heart raced, the edges of her emotions tinged with fear. Was she ready to face the full brunt of his question? The implications twisted the air heavier around her. Lily had spent so much time focusing on the mission, she realized she hadn't considered what it meant to her life. Sometimes change requires personal upheaval, Mr. Sanders continued, watching her intently. Think carefully before you answer. The stakes are high. As she sat there, staring into his knowing eyes, a chilling revelation dawned on her. To forge her path, she might need to confront parts of herself she had been avoiding entirely. What would she need to sacrifice, and was she even ready to find out? The thunderous sound of her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she pondered this critical juncture. Uncertainty loomed like a specter, forcing her to evaluate the true cost of her ambitions. Would victory come at a price she wasn't yet willing to pay? Mr. Sanders' eyes gleamed as he awaited her answer, and with tension thick in the air, she found herself caught in a web of choices with no clear path emerging from the shadows. The silence stretched as Lily grappled with Mr. Sanders' question, the weight of his gaze pinning her in place. What was she willing to sacrifice? In a heartbeat, her mind flashed through her current life the comforting rhythms of her daily routines, the moments spent with friends where laughter echoed, and the careful structures of her small world that felt safe. But could that safety coexist with her ambition? I need to be honest, she began, the tremor in her voice barely masked by her determination. I'm not sure I can give you a definitive sacrifice right now. I've been so consumed by the idea of what I want to build that I haven't directly confronted what I might lose in the process. Mr. Sanders raised an eyebrow, a flicker of intrigue illuminating his otherwise stoic demeanor. Go on, he encouraged, waiting for her to unpack the tangled thoughts swirling in her mind. I've always strived to be the one who holds it all together, she admitted, the admission slipping out more easily than she expected. My family relied on me, my friends do too. I love being that person, but I'm starting to see that maybe I've built walls around myself as much as I've built them for others. What if those walls, he interjected, keep you from honestly realizing your potential? Or worse, what if they inhibit your ability to mobilize others? Her heart raced at the realization. She had, in her efforts to lend support, bound herself to others' expectations. I need to shift my paradigm, she said suddenly, clarity washing over her like a cool breeze. Perhaps the greatest sacrifice is to relinquish these expectations, to let go of needing to satisfy everyone. That's where I feel the most weight. Mr. Sanders nodded, his expression shifting to one of respect. This is significant. A leader must navigate through their own doubts. If you are tethered to others' perceptions, you may not rise as high as you are capable of. But words alone couldn't encapsulate the swirling conflict within her heart. They all needed her, didn't they? The weight felt heavier than it had an hour ago, touring through her realization of dominion, trust, and sacrifice. Was this the defining moment that could shape her resolve forever? She took a deep breath. Perhaps it sounds selfish, but I think I need to be willing to make some distance. I can't be everything to everyone. I need space to grow into the leader I wish to become. The warmth in her chest mingled with a new layer of cold fear. Could she be that person? Could she really allow herself to step back and prioritize her ambitions? Mr. Sanders studied her carefully, as if weighing each word she spoke. I suspect many will resist that change, he finally said, a knowing look glimmering in his eyes. It's less about the direct sacrifices you make, and more about the transformations they evoke in those around you. Not everyone will embrace the new you. Lily nodded slowly, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. Change isn't a simple path, is it? But if I'm saying I'm ready for this, I need to prepare myself for the waves it'll create. This is a monumental shift, he confirmed, rising from his chair and moving towards the window, the light catching the contours of his face. You are not just altering your path, you are risking relationships. It's a brave step, but you need to arm yourself with strategies to dismantle the doubts and fears that will inevitably arise. As he spoke, Lily felt the crack of her old self-strategies revealing their cracks. Every level of growth coaxed out new complexities and fresh internal friction. She had told herself she would be resolute and confident, yet the raw power of vulnerability swirled around her, igniting a fight or flight within. So what now? She asked, watching Mr. Sanders carefully, eager to unearth the next stage of this transformation. Now, he replied, gazing out at the horizon, you begin to chart a new course for both yourself and those who've leaned on you. You may have to meet resistance that could feel like a betrayal. You'll discover the kind of leader you can be only through those challenges. Prepare to confront those who will push back. They're just waiting for you to slip. Lily's resolve crackled like static in the air, a tangible excitement forming under her skin. The path ahead now appeared steep but intoxicatingly clear. What had once seemed like a simple mission had morphed into a labyrinth of emotions, all hinging on that pivotal moment of confronting her deeper self. Just as she considered Mr. Sanders' warnings, a newfound sense of possibility enveloped her. But how would she navigate the inevitable pushback? How long could her personal will withstand the pressures lurking on the horizon? In the depths of her contemplation, the sting of questions bit into her, amplifying the sense of urgency. This was merely the beginning. The real test lay ahead as she began to draw boundaries that would reshape not just her ambition, but also her relationships. Was she truly ready to pay the price for the transformation that loomed? Lily rose from her seat, the weight of Mr. Sanders' words still echoing in her mind. A new resolve gnawed at her. She could no longer ignore the urgency brewing beneath her surface. Each step she took felt charged, as if she were traversing a tightrope stretched over an abyss of doubt and possibility. She left the office feeling a potent mix of fear and excitement. The world outside seemed brighter, the colors more vivid, as if everything had been injected with the vibrancy of her newfound ambition. But the thrill of this realization wove itself inextricably with the dread of confronting those she had always prioritized. Back at her apartment, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Who was this person staring back? The leader she aspired to be had to rise from the girl who feared disappointing those around her. She let out a long breath, a ritual signaling the shedding of her old self. It was time for introspection. She needed a plan, a strategy to navigate through the turbulence ahead. Organizing her cluttered workspace became an exercise in clarity. Lily pulled out a blank notebook and penned the title Goals. It felt liberating to start fresh, each word a stepping stone toward determination. Under the broad heading, she delineated her professional aspirations, a vision that mattered not just to her but to those she wished to inspire. Each target rang with authenticity, stretching her visions beyond the confines of comfort. But then reality pierced her bubble. What tangible steps would support these ambitions? Each goal required actions that undeniably distanced her from her current self. She noted them down, trying to silence the voices in her head that warned her of resistance, of betrayal. Focus would be her greatest ally. Networking, mentorship, skill development, she listed, her pen scratching against the paper. The momentum was palpable as she began to visualize conversations she needed to anchor her growth. A part of her craved the validation of those who had always looked to her. Would they understand this shift? Or were they destined to resist the change, as Mr. Sanders warned? Clarity turned into pricking anxiety, and she picked up her phone to scroll through her messages. There were the notifications from friends and family, bubbling with day-to-day banter, with no inkling of the internal upheaval she felt. Would it be better to tiptoe around her transformation, softening the blow? Or could she be courageous enough to share her intentions, expose her vulnerabilities? She set the phone down, wrestling with herself, a push and pull of authenticity against the perilous tether of societal expectations. The calls for coffee, the dinner dates she felt obliged to shape. Every suggestion from others felt charged with potential sacrifice. A text popped up from Clara, her best friend. "Hey. Are you free to chat later? Just checking in. Miss your face." Lily's heart twisted. She loved these messages, but they now filled her with guilt. Would she be letting Clara down by stepping into her own ambition, or was she offering her a new leader instead of a caretaker? Drawing a deep breath, she tapped out a response. "I'd love to. Let us talk about how life is changing." Her fingers hovered over the screen, contemplating whether to share her self-discovery. Would revealing her intentions help Clara understand the necessity of her decision, or would it stoke the flames of doubt? She hit send before she could dwell any longer. As the evening stretched on, Lily found herself physically restless. Thoughts of office politics drifted around her mind like the pieces of a puzzle refusing to fit. She felt compelled to map out how she would introduce her changes within her professional circle. It was one thing to decide to change herself, but another entirely to breathe life into that vision among the stakeholders she had once managed from a distance. The next morning, she arrived early at the office, heart pounding as she strolled through the empty hallway. Each whisper of interaction felt like both a countdown and a starting gun. Perhaps Mr. Sanders was right, the real test was on the horizon. She had resolved to engage her team in an upcoming meeting, envisioning a collaborative dialogue where she would articulate her shifts, build trust anew, while dismantling the wall of expectations she'd constructed. With a steely resolve, she leaned over the conference table, a vision crystallizing in her mind. The time had come to face the day and the revelations that awaited. Would she truly be ready to invite them into her transformation, or would her burgeoning confidence falter in the spotlight? Just as she prepared to embrace her new role, notes crumpling in her hands, something tugged at her, a sense of foreboding. The next meeting wouldn't just be about her intentions, it would probe deeper bonds of trust and test relationships she had woven closely. How would they react to the leader she was determined to become? How long could this momentum last before the first wave of truths crashed down on her? Lily stood in front of the conference room door, her heart racing like a wild stallion. Today marked a significant chapter in her journey. She was ready to reveal her transformation to the very people who had always known her as the diligent girl who held everything together. Yet, the weight of vulnerability pressed down. She was no longer just Lily, but a burgeoning leader ready to confront the consequences of change. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The room, filled with familiar faces, buzzed with idle chatter that quieted upon her entrance. She felt all eyes upon her, a mix of expectation and curiosity. This moment felt monumental, it encapsulated her entire evolution. "Good morning, everyone," Lily began, her voice steady, yet laced with an undercurrent of nervous energy. "I hope you're all well. I'm here today to share some changes, not only in our initiatives but in how I see my role among you." As she spoke, the words poured from her like a wellspring of clarity. They no longer felt foisted upon her. She poured her heart into articulating her vision, interweaving statistics with stories of families like hers who faced eviction, communities craving stability, and the human threads woven through every statistic. Lily was met with mixed reactions, some nodding in encouragement, while others leaned back, arms crossed. The palpable air of skepticism hinted at Maria, a longtime co-worker whose brows knitted tightly together. But she pressed on, fueled by her newfound sense of ownership. "Change is never easy," she continued, her conviction crystallizing with each sentence. "It requires sacrifices, yes, but as I've learned, it also breeds growth. I want us to be more than just a team, I want us to be a catalyst for real impact, not just on paper but in lives." I cannot do this alone, and I would like your support. The room absorbed her words in silence. She could feel the swell of apprehension crashing against the wave of hope she had built. She had taken the leap, and now she awaited their reaction. Lily noticed Maria finally shifting, uncrossing her arms. "And what does that mean for us?" she asked, her tone a blend of skepticism and intrigue. "It means we'll rethink our approach," Lily asserted, heart racing. "We'll focus on mentorship programs, allow for community engagement, and create tangible initiatives that uplift, not just sustain. I need your insights, your experiences. Together, we can redefine what success looks like." "Success? You think we can achieve that?" Maria challenged, not with cynicism, but curiosity sparking from her eyes. "We have the potential to make a difference," Lily replied, looking Maria directly in the eye. "There's power in collaboration. Our perspectives combined could shift how we function, how we impact. I'm asking you all to join me." One by one, her colleagues began to voice their thoughts, concerns transforming to discussions about how they could improve their existing work. The atmosphere transformed, tension melted, and excitement rippled through the room. They spoke about methods, outreach strategies, and connections with local organizations, each contribution fueling Lily's resolve that they were indeed onto something meaningful. With the meeting concluding, Lily felt a warmth envelop her. The faces that had once held expectations were now reflecting hope and enthusiasm. She had invoked a palpable transformation not just in the room, but within herself. Days following the meeting saw her newfound impact ripple across the office. People who once regarded her solely for her reliability began to seek her out for guidance. She was no longer just the dependable coworker, she was the inspirer, the facilitator of collaborative change. And with each positive encounter, her confidence solidified into an undeniable force. As she reviewed the progress she'd made, a ping from her phone broke her concentration, an email from Mr. Sanders. Excitement tinged her anxiety, not knowing what insight he may bring. Yet, the anxiety had morphed, she was more than prepared this time. "Lily," he wrote, "I've been following your progress. Your courage to initiate change has reawakened my own desire to contribute. Let's discuss further support, possibly investing through a mentorship fund." Lily's heart soared. Here was tangible acknowledgement, wrapped in the validation she sought. The final ripple of transformation crashed around her as she set her computer down. Each challenge had sharpened her resolve, every deliberation made the goal clearer. But more importantly, she had risen from the safety of her walls, ready to embrace the unpredictability of potential vulnerability. Tears of joy stung her eyes, reflecting the simultaneous weight of accomplishment and exhilaration. She wasn't just moving through life anymore, she was sculpting it, navigating not just her destiny, but others. Lily had achieved more from her initial desperation than she imagined. Her journey remained deeply personal, filled with lessons learned through confronting her demons and embracing opportunity. The stakes would continue to rise, change was simply the beginning. She had found her voice, and now it was amplified, echoing through the lives she aimed to inspire. Transformations often come at a price, but they yield growth worth the sacrifice. She felt ready. This was the moment to embrace the legacy she intended to weave, a legacy built on courage, innovation, and the willingness to reach out and uplift those around her. You need to subscribe now to follow more incredible stories of transformation like Lily's. Don't wait even one more second to create a community that thrives on perseverance. Leave a like now to fuel our journey and promote these empowering tales. Comment below with your thoughts on Lily's journey. What would you sacrifice to chase your dreams? And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends. Let's spread the inspiration together. This is the moment to show your support for stories that ignite change.